Excel Lineal here, and today I'm going to be going over an example of a pivot table. So here is my falsified spreadsheet, and I have fake work orders, fake services, due dates, days late, all sorts of property information, loan address, date, etc., and the corresponding or assigned contractor, company, and information. So what information we're going to try and gather here with a pivot table is going to be what services do we have, how many services are there, and how late are these services. So what we are looking for here is a pivot table that looks like this. These are the services. This is the number of work orders. There's the grand total of work orders that we have that are for the service house cleaning. We have 15 work orders that are lawn maintenance and 11 weekly pool cleanings. But then we can also see from this top section here how many days late they are. So we have 3 lawn maintenance work orders that are between 26 and 40 days late. We have 1 mailbox repair that is 41 days late or older. So this is a really good example of collecting data on specific properties for specific services and seeing how late they are. So how to do this would be starting with the sample data. We're going to select cell A1, go to Insert, and then create the pivot table. So we already know that all of the data is selected because of the moving dashes along the side and top here. We could create a new worksheet, but I want to show a couple examples compared to the original on our goal sheet. So I'm going to add this to an existing worksheet. And now from here, we're going to actually select where we want our new table to go. So we're going to add it just below our original and select OK. I'm going to start with showing you how I made this original pivot table, and then I'll go on to showing you some variants and other data that we could collect from this list of information. So I'll start with the services. We're going to add that to the rows. So here you can see we have the different rows of our services. So we'll select services, and that automatically goes to the rows when you click the checkbox, or you can click and drag. Both will suffice. Next, we need to know the count of the work orders. So we're going to grab the work order number field name here, move that over to the values. Now the first thing that it's going to give us is the total sum of the work orders. Obviously we don't want the sum of the work orders, we want the count. So how many work orders are there? We'll select the little I icon here, and it gives us some additional options to sort by. We'll just select count and OK. Now it gives us the full count of the work orders for each of these services. You can see that this actually matches the grand total. So now we need to know how many days late all of these services are. So we could go with the days late on our new table. But the reason why we're not going to select days late is because it actually adds a whole lot of mess to our table. It adds way too much information and makes it very, very difficult to find helpful data. For example, if I wanted to find what the oldest house cleaning is, I have to go and find the oldest number here, and then go over and find the one that actually has a 1 next to it for the house cleaning. So that's a lot more complicated than the original table that we have up here. So I will undo that now. And from here, I can show you the cleaner way to do it as we have up here. That's where we have the days late group. And now you can see if I want to find the oldest house cleaning, I can actually find the days 41 plus category. and find the one house cleaning is over 41 days. Now, if I want the additional data behind that, what work order number is it? Exactly how many days old is it? I can just double click this and it will give me all of the information on this work order, the due date, exactly how many days late it is, and so on. So that information is always available when you double click the cell that has the information you're looking for. Now back to our original table, I will show you how I organized the days into a different sorting style. You can see in this original one, I have the NA or not late items first, and then it goes from oldest to the most recently marked as late items. So to do this, you select any of these header in the columns. You will right click, sort, and then Z to A. Now these match the original table that we had, and it just gives a different view of the same data. Now I do want to give you a few more examples of how this data can be displayed. So one example is actually switching out the location of the services and the days late group. So I'll move services over to columns and days late group over to rows. So you can see here, because of the name of the services, the length actually expands a little bit more. So the columns are wider, which usually is less visually appealing. So this would not be the way that I would choose to display this information on this pivot table, but it is a different way to show the same data. So you can see our original table shows house cleaning. Let's go with day 11 to 25. There's one work order that has the house cleaning service on it that is 11 to 25 days old. So we can still find that information here by going to the house cleaning column and the day 11 to 25 section, and still find that there's only one work order that is 11 to 25 days old with the house cleaning service on it. Same exact information, different way to display it. So when it comes to what items you want in the column section versus the rows section, my suggestion would always be whatever is going to expand the data more should be in the rows section. So you can see here all of the service names expand these columns much more than they do than the days sections do, because these are just numbers. They usually keep all of the data here to about this small most of the time. So in this case, the best way to showcase the data here is to have the days late group as the columns, since they are smaller. Another piece of information we could gather here is how many services do we have per state. So in this case, we're going to have a longer list of states, so that's an item that we should put in the rows section. So I'm going to move the services back to the columns and remove, I'm going to uncheck the days late group, and then find the state item. Move that to rows. So now we can see here that the state of California, let's say, has one house cleaning work order there, one lawn maintenance work order there, and one work order for a window repair, totaling 3 work orders in California. Let's say we need to see where we have the most work orders. That's going to be in Texas and in Florida. So just another example of other bits of information you could collect using the table, pivot table, to collect the data, as opposed to filtering through all of this information to try and find where you have the most work orders. So this gives you a very clear overview of everything. So as an example of why you would put the shortest data in the column section I'm going to actually switch out the states and columns. Move the services back to the rows. So now you can see the states go much further when they are in the columns. So again, not as visually appealing on the pivot tables. So this is why, even though the services actually take up much more space when we're comparing the actual days late, it takes up less space in the columns when you're comparing it to the states that all of these services are in. So this is always going to vary based on what data you're putting on a pivot table, but as a general rule of thumb, I would always suggest whatever data takes up the least amount of space is what you would put in the columns section. And then everything that is going to be a bigger list, you put in the rows section. It's usually much easier and much more comfortable to scroll up and down through a list versus trying to scroll through the data side to side. So this is just a few examples of how to collect and review different bits of data on pivot tables, and I hope you found this helpful. I will add this sample data as well as the goal sheet onto, I'll add that to the links below, and you can play with that a little bit and see how you feel about pivot tables after that. So until next time, have fun excelling!